When I had been in law school at USC, my last semester, I had worked with Tom Coleman, who was kind of Mr. Domestic Partnership nationally, and he actually taught a class in it, and as part of our class, we actually worked on uh, the campaign that he was embroiled in preparing to have domestic partnership legislation passed in Los Angeles County, which he did in 1988. So I was no stranger to that battle. Actually, domestic partnership serves a purpose for many people who do not choose to get married, not just gay people. Gay people were turning to domestic partnership because we couldn't get married, but a lot of other people, disabled people, seniors, household members, people that could benefit from the benefits that you got from domestic partnership. It was important to a broad spectrum of people, not just gays and lesbians. When I came back from the Democratic Convention in Chicago in 1996, I contacted my old professor, Tom Coleman, in LA regarding the domestic partnership materials that he had. And he forwarded everything to me, the ordinance, supporting materials, background materials, and said, take it, it's yours, put your name on it, be my guest. He was very generous in that regard. Through the Human Rights Board, I presented the question of a domestic partnership ordinance to the Broward County, to the commissioners, and they wanted to have it passed through their lawyers, which we did, and what it came down to is, yes, we can do it, the commissioners can do it, you just got to say, go. The only opposition was John Rodstrom, who was a commissioner who represented, I want to say, the District 22 area that runs along the beach. It's a very, the more affluent part of Broward County, and also the more Republican part of Broward County, and so the more conservative part. And so Rodstrom, I didn't really get into it before when we were talking about the Human Rights Ordinance, but he was the only commissioner that did not vote for amending the Human Rights Ordinance to provide protections for gays. John Rodstrom's political consultant called me shortly after we had enacted the Human Rights Ordinance, called me into the office because he wanted to offer me a board seat trying to repair his relationship with the gay community, because he basically had become public enemy number one, being the only commissioner that opposed and voted against the change to the ordinance. But I told him I couldn't repair his reputation, and I would only sully my reputation by taking taking a seat from him. So thank you very much. No, thank you. But if you want to repair your reputation with the gay community, what you could do is sponsor domestic partnership when I bring it forward. And he said, well, yes, I will do that, and shook my hand. Okay, all this handshaking going on downtown. But when the push came to shove in 1998, he did not. And again, he was the only one who voted against it. I didn't have anybody working on it with me, just Tom Coleman in California and me trying to decide, let's do this, even though like the guys didn't want to do it in 96. And the guys still didn't want to do it in 97. But because they were doing other things and it just wasn't, at the top of their list. I don't think any of them were in a relationship to start. So it was like, what's in it for me? I don't know. That's a terrible thing to say, but that's kind of what I thought at the time, because I was a little surprised nobody wanted to do it. And even Alan Terrell said, well, he didn't think we had the votes. That was in 97, and he passed away in 97. And in fact, we did have the votes. So when we finally brought forward the domestic partnership ordinance, yes, so what happened was, remember, I had left the Dolphin board, but I hadn't quit as a member. I just stepped away because it was very unpleasant what was happening there, and I didn't want to be part of it. But they were the only game in town politically, and I wasn't going to, and I knew from a community organization point of view that if we ever did have to defend this law, we needed to do this as a group. I couldn't just carry the flag by myself downtown and say, let's do this. So I went to the Dolphin Board, and they voted, and I handed out all the materials, and they voted unanimously to support it. And at that time, Dean evidenced that he was interested, and so I said, let's do it together, and we did. And we also worked with a woman named Jamie Bloodworth, and Jamie was planning to run for supervisor of elections. So Jamie Bloodworth was a really bright woman. She had been one of the founding members of the Dolphins. And she had become disillusioned with him for the same reasons I had, but many years earlier. And so she was politically involved mainly with women's groups like the National Organization for Women and the Gwen Cherry Women's Political Caucus, where a lot of lesbians were politically active that weren't directly involved with the gay and lesbian community. But Jamie Bloodworth was, but she didn't take a public position because she was running for supervisor of elections, and she couldn't afford to be seen as an openly gay activist lesbian. So she worked with Dean and I on the domestic partnership ordinance. And it really was not, it's funny because the domestic partnership ordinance kind of seems to, it takes a center stage and a bigger, it seems to have a bigger impact on folks than the human rights ordinance, which was equally, if not more important in my mind. Without the law changed to protect us, to have the right to be in places of public accommodation, we could never have a Wilton Drive. That was key. Domestic partnership really wasn't that big a deal, but symbolically it was a huge deal to everybody. And so it was a wonderful thing, but it was very easy. The same commissioners that voted with us before voted with us this time. Once the county lawyers said, yes, we can do this, reviewed the language, which essentially came from California with a few tweaks, and Dean and I put our names on it because Tom Coleman said, it's yours, take it. Do what you want. So we did. And, so we, that's the real story. Sorry, Dean. Anyway, it's the truth. I have the documentation to prove it. But anyway, so it was a big deal. It was so popular. It was amazing. We rode in gay pride parades when they were hardly parades, when they were still marches and there was hardly anybody watching. But when we did the domestic partnership thing, that was really great. And we got a lot of appreciation, and it was an amazing symbolic victory. The morning that so the way that works, the domestic partnership legislation is, in order to register your relationship, you would pick up a packet from a kiosk downtown. We didn't get things online in the old days the way we do now. You'd have to actually go downtown, and there's a kiosk, and you'd spin it around until you see Broward County Domestic Partnership registration. It was really a kick in the pants, but you'd fill that out. They would notarize it for you there, pay them $20, they register your relationship. Number one, the fact that you're gay in a gay relationship is now public information. That was a big deal. It was a big deal for people to do it, and it was a big deal for some people who did it who didn't know that it made your relationship a matter of public record. That's like the dark side, But fortunately, hopefully, there weren't too many people that was the case. But it was wonderful. In the morning that it opened, 70 people showed up at 8:30 in the morning downtown to register their relationship. So it was very exciting. And yes, we had a great party that night, and it was a wonderful thing. And it was, and even though the domestic partnership ordinance, all it gives you is the same right to your partner that any other family member would have, and only in Broward County, the same right as a family member to make decisions in a healthcare setting, but not an exclusive right or the primary right like a spouse, the right to visit them in jail, the right to get a library card, You know, it really wasn't much, but it was amazing for us because we didn't have anything before that. We were nothing. We were nothing to each other. But even that, the domestic partnership ordinance could not confer any inheritance rights or any right to sue if your partner were injured. I mean, the domestic partnership ordinance can be defined by what it did not give. It really was largely a symbolic piece of legislation. I mean, it gave you when people ask me, what does the domestic partnership, if I register, what do I get? So you get a certificate suitable for framing and the right to visit your partner in the hospital, which is a big deal, and jail, which hopefully that you won't need to exercise that right. And that's really it. We tried to get more things, into it, but ultimately it was impossible because the kinds of, a lot of the things that we were trying to pack into that legislation is just simply not in the power of the county to do that.